The beings of higher dimensions had always looked down upon us humans with amusement. To them, we were like ants trying to comprehend the vastness of an ocean, primitive creatures bound by the limitations of our three-dimensional existence. They would gather in their cosmic amphitheaters, sipping on condensed starlight while watching our fumbling attempts at interstellar travel, treating our greatest achievements as nothing more than comedy shows for their entertainment. That all changed on the day we unveiled the Helios Protocol. I remember standing in the control room of the TSS Prometheus, Earth's first seventh-dimensional vessel, watching the dimensional sensors light up like a Christmas tree. Captain Sarah Chen, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic displays, wore an expression that mixed determination with a hint of fear. 20 years of her life had led to this moment, and none of us truly knew if the theories would hold up in practice. "Status report on the dimensional anchors," she commanded, her voice steady despite the tension that filled the room. The ship's quantum processors hummed in response, their crystalline matrices processing calculations that would have taken our best supercomputers millennia to solve. Lieutenant David Torres, our dimensional physicist, spoke without taking his eyes off the rapidly changing numbers on his screen. "All 7 sets of anchors are maintaining stability, Captain. The quantum foam manipulation is proceeding exactly as the simulations predicted." He paused, swallowing hard. "We're actually doing it. We're actually breaking free from conventional space-time." The laughter from above grew louder then, a cosmic chorus of amusement that resonated through multiple dimensions. They thought they were watching another human failure in the making. Our sensors could detect their gathering, billions of higher dimensional beings congregating to witness what they assumed would be our greatest folly yet. I'll never forget the moment when the ship's AI announced, "Helios Protocol initiation sequence complete. Full dimensional ascension in T-minus 60 seconds. The gathered aliens' amusement peaked, their multidimensional mirth creating ripples through the fabric of reality itself. They expected our ship to tear itself apart, adding another chapter to their endless compilation of human failures. But we had a secret, something that none of them had considered possible. Hidden within the Prometheus's core lay technology that humanity had developed in complete radio silence. For decades, we had learned to mask our true progress, feeding their superiority complex while we prepared for this very moment." The ship's hull began to shimmer as we activated the dimensional shift drives. Captain Chen's fingers danced across the control panel, inputting the final sequence. "Remember everyone," she said, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's hopes. "We only get one shot at this. If we succeed, we change everything. If we fail—" She left the sentence unfinished, but we all knew the stakes. The cosmic laughter started to fade, replaced by something we had never detected from them before: uncertainty. As the Prometheus began its transformation, our sensors picked up rapid communications between the higher dimensional beings. Their confidence was cracking. Just as the ship prepared to make its final shift, our long-range sensors detected something massive moving through the higher dimensions, something that made even these godlike beings pause their revelry. Whatever it was, it had noticed our attempt to bridge the dimensional gap, and it was coming to investigate. Captain Chen's hand hovered over the final activation switch. The ship's AI began its countdown. Dimensional shift in 10, 9, 8. The massive entity drew closer, its presence warping the very fabric of reality around us. 7, 6, 5. The laughter had completely stopped now. 4, 3. We could feel the weight of countless alien eyes upon us. 2. This was humanity's moment of truth. 1. Time seemed to freeze in that final second. I watched Captain Chen's finger descend toward the activation switch, moving through air that felt thick as molasses. In that stretched moment, my mind flashed back to the day we'd first discovered the truth about our dimensional observers, and how that discovery had changed everything. It was a routine quantum archaeology dig in the Atacama Desert 3 years ago. We'd been searching for traces of ancient civilizations using our newly developed quantum resonance scanners, when we stumbled upon something that defied explanation. A perfectly preserved message encoded in the quantum substrate of reality itself. The message hadn't been meant for us. It was a conversation between the higher dimensional beings, carelessly left behind like litter at a cosmic park. The translation took months, but what we learned changed humanity's trajectory forever. These beings weren't just watching us for entertainment. They were containing us, keeping us locked in our dimensional prison while they harvested something from our reality, something they called complexity potential. Dr. Chen, she wasn't a captain then, had been the first to understand the implications. They're farming us, she'd said during that fateful midnight briefing at the United Earth Defense Council, like we might cultivate bacteria in a petri dish. They feed off the creative chaos of our limited existence, our struggles, our innovations. They've been manipulating our development, keeping us just advanced enough to be interesting, but not enough to threaten them. That revelation had sparked the Prometheus project, while the higher dimensional beings watched what they thought was our main space program, laughing at our clumsy attempts to achieve faster-than-light travel. We built something entirely different in secret. We used their own arrogance against them, knowing they'd never look too closely at what they considered primitive technology. The ship's AI continued its status updates, pulling me back to the present moment. Warning: unidentified higher dimensional entity approaching. Estimated mass exceeds all known parameters. Dimensional distortion levels critical. Lieutenant Torres's hands flew across his console. Captain, the entity. It's not just big, it's ancient. The quantum dating puts it at. This can't be right. Older than our universe. Through the ship's sensors, we could feel the cosmic behemoth's attention focus on us. It was like being watched by a hurricane, a force of nature that could barely perceive us as anything more than microscopic disturbances in its reality. They're trying to lock us down, our dimensional specialist, Dr. Rivera, called out from her station. The regular observers, they're generating some kind of dimensional barrier around us, trying to box us in before we can activate the Helios protocol. Captain Chen's face hardened with resolve. They've had their time, their games, their laughter. Her finger finally completed its journey to the activation switch. Humanity is about to step onto a bigger stage. The ship's hull began to vibrate at frequencies that shouldn't have been possible in normal space. The quantum foam manipulation engines spun up to full power, their crystalline matrices glowing with energies pulled from between the dimensions themselves. Beyond our hull, we could sense the higher dimensional beings scrambling to contain what they finally realized was a genuine threat to their dominion. But it was the ancient entity that worried me most. It had stopped its approach, hanging in the higher dimensions like a suspended thundercloud. Was it here to stop us? To help us? Or was humanity about to stumble into a conflict far older and deeper than our cosmic prison break? The ship's AI spoke one final time. Helios protocol fully charged. Dimensional barriers at critical stress points. Multiple timeline convergence detected. Captain, we're ready. Execute, Captain Chen commanded, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The Helios protocol engaged, and the Prometheus began its transformation. The ship's quantum structure started to unfold like an origami flower blooming in dimensions we'd never been meant to perceive. Through our enhanced sensors, we could see the higher dimensional beings recoiling in shock as their containment barriers shattered against forces they'd never imagined we could wield. But something was wrong. Dr. Rivera's voice cut through the chaos. Captain, the dimensional readings, they're not matching our simulations. The ancient entity, it's resonating with our quantum core somehow. The ship's internal gravity fluctuated wildly as waves of dimensional energy washed over us. Emergency lights painted the bridge in alternating patterns of red and shadow. I gripped my console tighter, watching as impossible data scrolled across my screens. The Prometheus wasn't just breaking through to higher dimensions. It was pulling something else through with us. Multiple dimensional fractures forming, Torres reported, his voice strained. The quantum foam is becoming unstable. Whatever that ancient entity is, it's amplifying our dimensional shift by orders of magnitude. Captain Chen's fingers danced across her command interface, making split-second adjustments to the Helios protocol. Route all available power to the dimensional anchors, she ordered. We didn't come this far to lose control now. The laughter of our dimensional wardens had transformed into something else entirely, signals we could only interpret as panic. They were fleeing, their vast amphitheaters dissolving as they abandoned their entertainment-turned-nightmare. But the ancient entity remained, its vast presence now intertwined with our ship's quantum field. "Captain," Dr. Rivera called out, her eyes wide as she studied the readings, "I don't think it's fighting us. The resonance patterns, they're synchronized. It's almost like," she paused, double-checking her data, "like it's been waiting for this, waiting for us." The ship's AI interrupted with an urgent warning. "Critical mass approaching in quantum core. Dimensional breach expanding beyond predicted parameters. Timeline convergence at 99.9%. Through the bridge viewport, we could see space itself beginning to crack. Not just normal space, the very boundaries between dimensions were splitting apart like shattered glass. Beyond those cracks, something waited, something that made even the ancient entity seem small in comparison. "My God," Torres whispered, "we're not just breaking out of our dimensional prison. We're breaking through to—" Before he could finish, a surge of energy unlike anything in human experience pulsed through the ship. Every screen, every hologram, every quantum sensor exploded with data. The Prometheus shuddered, caught between dimensions, suspended at the threshold of what felt like reality itself. Captain Chen stood from her command chair, her face illuminated by the impossible lights streaming through the dimensional fractures. "All hands, brace for final breakthrough. Whatever's on the other side, remember, this was humanity's choice, our moment." The ancient entity's presence intensified, its essence now so intertwined with our ship that it felt like an extension of the Prometheus itself. Through our quantum link, I sensed something from it, not thoughts exactly, but impressions. Images of chains breaking, of prisons crumbling, of a universe far vaster and stranger than even our dimensional wardens had known. The ship's AI began a new countdown, its voice resonating with harmonics that shouldn't have been possible. Dimensional convergence in 5, 4, 3. Time seemed to stretch again, reality bending around us like light around a black hole. In that eternal moment, I realized we weren't just about to discover what lay beyond our dimensional prison. We were about to learn why we'd been imprisoned in the first place. 2, 1. The final second of the countdown never came. Instead, time itself fractured around us as the ancient entity merged completely with the Prometheus's quantum core. Our dimensional sensors overloaded, flooding the bridge with cascading waves of data that our systems could barely process. And then we heard it, not with our ears, but with our minds, a voice that felt older than time itself. "The prison breaks both ways, children of Earth." Captain Chen staggered, gripping her command chair as the voice resonated through the ship's quantum structure. "What do you mean?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around us. The response came not in words, but in a series of devastating revelations projected directly into our consciousness. We weren't the only prisoners. The higher dimensional beings who'd watched us, laughed at us, contained us, they too were trapped, though in a prison of their own making. They'd sealed themselves away from something they feared, something that dwelled in the spaces between realities. "Their barrier," Dr. Rivera gasped, her hands flying across her console as she interpreted the quantum readings. "It wasn't just keeping us in, it was keeping something else out. And we just—" Her voice trailed off as the implications hit home. Lieutenant Torres's voice cracked as he reported, multiple dimensional ruptures detecting. They're everywhere. The whole containment system is collapsing, not just around Earth, but across every dimensional plane we can detect. Through the Prometheus's enhanced sensors, we watched in awe and horror as reality itself began to unravel. The higher dimensional beings weren't running from us anymore. They were fleeing from something else, something that was pouring through the gaps we'd torn in their carefully constructed barriers. "Captain," the ship's AI announced, its voice taking on harmonics that shouldn't have been possible. "Quantum analysis suggests these entities predate the current universe. They appear to be refugees from a previous iteration of reality." Captain Chen's face hardened as she absorbed this information. "So we didn't just break out of a cage. We've opened a door that's been sealed since before the Big Bang." She turned to face her crew, her expression resolute. "But we didn't come this far to become someone else's prisoners again. The ancient entity that had merged with our ship pulsed with what felt like approval. More images flooded our minds, countless civilizations rising and falling, endless cycles of imprisonment and escape, and a truth so vast it threatened to overwhelm our human consciousness. Multiple quantum signatures approaching, Torres called out. They're like nothing we've ever seen before. Not higher dimensional beings, something else entirely. Dr. Rivera's eyes widened as she studied the readings. Captain, the Helios Protocol. It's not just breaking dimensional barriers anymore. It's evolving. The ship is changing, adapting to something. The ancient entity, it's not just helping us escape. It's... Before she could finish, the Prometheus lurched violently. Every quantum sensor on the ship screamed warnings as spacetime itself began to twist around us. Through the dimensional viewers, we could see them clearly now. Vast, impossible shapes moving through the void between realities, heading straight for the gaps we'd torn in the universe's fabric. The ancient entity's voice resonated through our minds once more. Now comes the true test, humans. You wish to break free of your dimensional prison. Then you must help us face what lies beyond all dimensions. What has waited, patient and hungry, since the death of the last universe. Captain Chen stood straighter, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's future. We wanted to prove ourselves to the higher dimensions. Looks like we're about to get our chance, just not in any way we expected. Captain Chen's decision came without hesitation. Initialize quantum core fusion, she commanded. If we're going to face what's beyond the dimensional barriers, we do it on our terms. The ancient entity's essence pulsed through the ship's systems in response, merging more deeply with our technology than we thought possible. The Prometheus shuddered as its structure began to transform, our human engineering blending with knowledge older than time itself. Quantum fusion at 70%, Torres reported, his voice filled with awe. The ship's dimensional signature is, Captain, we're no longer bound by traditional dimensional constraints. We're becoming something else entirely. Through our enhanced sensors, we watched as the entities from beyond reality approached. Vast, shadowy forms that defied comprehension. But now we could see something else too. They weren't just running loose. They were being pursued. The higher dimensional beings who'd once laughed at us were fleeing from both sides, caught between these ancient horrors and something even they feared to name. New quantum signatures detected, Dr. Rivera announced, her eyes wide. They're like us. Other civilizations who broke free, scattered across different dimensions and timelines. We're not alone in this fight. The ship's eye spoke with a voice that now carried echoes of the ancient entity. Dimensional convergence complete. The Prometheus has achieved full quantum synthesis. We are ready, Captain. The entities struck first, reality warping energies washing over our hull like cosmic tsunamis. But the Prometheus, now transformed by its fusion with the ancient entity, stood firm. Captain Chen's hands flew across the quantum-enhanced controls, directing power through systems that hadn't existed moments before. Return fire, she ordered. The Prometheus responded, unleashing beams of pure dimensional energy that cut through the void between realities. The entities recoiled, clearly surprised that their prey could fight back. But the real shock came from behind us. The higher dimensional beings, our former wardens, had stopped running. Through the quantum link, we felt their realization, the same one we'd reached. The only way to survive was to stand together. Multiple quantum signatures converging, Torres called out. The other freed civilizations, they're linking with us, creating a network across dimensions. The ancient entity's voice resonated through our minds one final time. Now you understand. The prison was never about containment. It was preparation. Every civilization that breaks free, every species that rises above its dimensional bonds, all were being readied for this moment. Captain Chen stood at the center of the bridge, her consciousness now linked through the ship to thousands of other species across countless dimensions. Then let's show them what we've learned, she declared. The Prometheus pulsed with power as we combined our human ingenuity with the ancient entity's knowledge and the desperate courage of every escaped civilization. Together, we created something that had never existed before, a weapon built from the very fabric of reality itself. Quantum convergence at maximum, the eye announced. All dimensional barriers are aligned. Fire, Chen commanded. The blast that erupted from the Prometheus transcended ordinary physics. It wasn't just energy. It was pure dimensional force, the combined will of thousands of civilizations focused through human determination and ancient wisdom. The entities from beyond reality screamed in frequencies that shattered dimensional barriers, but they couldn't escape. As reality stabilized around us, we realized the truth. The higher dimensional beings hadn't imprisoned us out of cruelty. They'd been creating an army, preparing civilizations across all dimensions for this moment, and humanity, with our desperate bid for freedom, had unwittingly become the key to it all. But in our moment of victory, our sensors detected something else. Beyond the dimensional barriers we'd shattered, past the ancient entities we'd defeated, something stirred, something that made everything we'd faced seem insignificant. Captain Chen looked at her crew, a knowing smile crossing her face. "Well," she said, "looks like breaking out of our dimensional prison was just the beginning." As the dimensional dust settled, the Prometheus hung in a space between spaces, its transformed hull gleaming with energies no human vessel was ever meant to channel. The bridge crew sat in stunned silence, each of us trying to process what we just experienced. The quantum displays showed the aftermath of our battle, reality itself slowly knitting back together, dimensional barriers reforming in new patterns. "Status report," Captain Chen requested, her voice softer now but still carrying that steel edge we'd all come to rely on. The ancient entity's essence still flowed through our ship's systems, but its presence felt different, more like a partner than a passenger. Dr. Rivera spoke first, her fingers dancing across her console as she analyzed the quantum readings. "The dimensional rifts are stabilizing, Captain, but they're not closing completely. It's like we've created something new, permanent bridges between realities. The higher dimensional beings are maintaining position," Torres added, watching his own displays. They're waiting for something. From us." He paused, double-checking his readings. "And we're receiving signals from the other freed civilizations. Thousands of them, all asking the same question. What now?" The ship's AI, its voice now carrying harmonics from multiple dimensions, provided an answer none of us had expected. "Analysis complete. The threat we defeated was only an advanced force. Long-range quantum scans indicate more entities gathering in the spaces between universes. Estimated arrival, 3 Earth years." Captain Chen stood from her command chair, walking to the dimensional viewport where she could see the gathered forces of multiple realities, former prisoners and wardens alike, now united by a common purpose. "So that's why they needed an army," she said quietly. "Why they spent billions of years preparing us all." The ancient entity shared one final message through our quantum link. "The true war approaches. You have proven yourselves worthy allies. All of you." Its essence began to fade from our systems, but not before leaving behind gifts, knowledge and technology beyond anything humanity had dreamed possible. I looked down at my console, watching as new data streamed in. The quantum network linking us to other civilizations was stabilizing, becoming permanent. Through it, I could sense their stories, thousands of races who, like us, had fought their way out of dimensional imprisonment only to find a greater purpose waiting. "What are your orders, Captain?" Torres asked, his hands hovering over the quantum controls that could take us anywhere in any dimension. Chen turned back to face her crew, and I saw in her eyes the same mix of exhaustion and exhilaration I felt in my own heart. "First, we make contact with Earth. They need to know what's coming, what we're all facing. Then," she smiled, and it was the smile of someone who could see possibilities stretching across infinite dimensions. "Then we start preparing. We've got 3 years to turn this alliance of former prisoners into the greatest defense force reality has ever seen." "And the higher dimensional beings?" Dr. Rivera asked. "Our former wardens." "We teach them how to laugh with us instead of at us," Chen replied. "Because if today proved anything, it's that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our determination. It's our ability to turn enemies into allies." As the Prometheus began its journey back to Earth, I thought about how this had all started. with the laughter of beings who thought they were our superiors. Now that laughter had been replaced by respect, and humanity had helped forge something unprecedented, an alliance that spanned not just space and time, but reality itself. The next war would be bigger than anything we'd faced, but we wouldn't face it alone, and we wouldn't face it unprepared. As I looked at my fellow crew members, I knew that whatever came at us from beyond the dimensional barriers would learn what our former wardens had learned: never underestimate humanity's capacity to overcome its limitations. Above all, never laugh at those who dream of breaking free. You might just find yourself standing beside them when the real battle begins.